If you're a Pokemon fan, chances are you've seen a post or a picture with the win percentages of all of Ash's Pokemon. And I always loved looking at those stats just to see what Pokemon were really putting in the work on his team. So I thought today I would take it one step further and make a win rate for every single Pokemon that appears in the anime. But what does that mean exactly? Well, first of all, since we're not just looking at Ash's Pokemon, we will be including every Pokemon from every trainer and even wild Pokemon battles as well. This means instead of just keeping track of Ash's Pikachu, we're going to keep track of every Pikachu that battles in the show and determine which species of Pokemon is shown to have the best win record. Before we get into the fight list, I do want to clarify on a couple of things. A win for a Pokemon is pretty clear in this show. When the losing Pokemon gets the swirly eyes, that Pokemon is unable to battle and has officially lost. That being said, if a trainer chooses to return their Pokemon before they have been knocked out, I will not be counting that as a win or a loss. It's just simply not included in the record. Moving forward, Team Rocket battles will not be counted unless it's an official battle. For example, when they enter tournaments, or when they're taking over for the 8th gym badge against Ash. Those battles count, the other ones don't. It just gets way too complicated because most of these battles end with a capture or a Team Rocket blasting off again, which aren't official ends, so I figured it'd be best just to leave them out of this. Furthermore, group battles won't count unless they're official, again, like tournament battles and stuff like that. But like, if a Pokemon takes down a group of wild Pokemon, I'm not gonna count that for the record unless it does it in one-on-one fights. And last but not least here, I'm not gonna include the special types of battles like Pokemon Sumo and so on and so forth. I will be leaving a link to the Google Sheets document that I used to keep track of all of this. So feel free to go to the description and check out the stats and the trainers who are using all of the Pokemon that I'm about to talk about. But now that we got the ground rules out of the way, let's take a look at some of these battles in Kanto. In episode 4, Challenge of the Samurai, Ash's Pidgeotto loses to the Samurai's Pinsir. In episode 5, Showdown in Pewter City, Onix wins against Pikachu, Geodude wins against Pidgeotto, Pikachu wins against Geodude, and Pikachu wins against Onix. It's kinda bullshit, but it is an official win, so that is for Pikachu. In episode 8, AJ's Sandshrew beats Pidgeotto and Butterfree. In episode 9, the School of Hard Knocks, Giselle's Graveler beats Misty's Starmie, but then Ash's Pikachu beats Giselle's Cubone. In episode 10, Bulbasaur in the Hidden Village, Misty's Starmie wins against a Wild Oddish, the Wild Bulbasaur beats Starmie, the Wild Bulbasaur beats Butterfree, and at the end of the episode, Pikachu beats Bulbasaur. Episode 14, Electric Shock Showdown, Pikachu loses to Raichu, and then Pikachu wins against Raichu. Episode 15, Battle aboard the St. Anne, a Gentleman's Raticate beats a Kid Starmie. Episode 22, Abra and the Psychic Showdown, Sabrina's Kadabra wins against Pikachu. Episode 25, Primeape Goes Bananas, Ash's Charmander wins against the Wild Primeape. Episode 26, Pokemon Sensation, Ash's Charmander wins against Weepinbell, and Erica's Gloom wins against Ash's Charmander. We've got a lot of fights to look at in episode 29 here, the punchy Pokemon. Hitmonchan beats Pikachu, Primeape beats Machop, Hitmonlee beats Geodude, Machoke beats Poliwrath, Hitmonchan beats Machamp, Hitmonlee beats Machoke, Primeape wins against Machamp, Hitmonlee wins against Hitmonchan, and Primeape beats Hitmonlee in the end. Episode 30, Sparks Fly for Magnemite. A wild Magnemite wins against a wild Muck. In episode 32, the Ninja Poke Showdown, Bulbasaur wins against Venonat, Venomoth wins against Pidgeotto, and Charmander wins against Golbat. Episode 36, the Bridge Bite Gang, a Golem wins against Bulbasaur, Charmander wins against that Golem, and Cloyster wins against Psyduck. In episode 37, Ditto's Mysterious Mansion, Duplica's Ditto wins against Ash's Bulbasaur. This next episode you may or may not agree with having them on the list, but episode 44, The Problem with Paris, Ash's Pikachu wins against Paris, Squirtle wins against Paris, and Charmeleon wins against Paris, but by the end of the episode, Paris wins against Charmeleon. Episode 48, Holy Matrimony, James's Growlithe wins against Jezebel's Vileplume. Episode 49, So Near Yet So Far-Fetched, Keith's Farfetch'd wins against Bulbasaur, and then Misty Psyduck wins against Farfetch'd. Episode 50, Who Gets to Keep Togepi? They have a little tournament to see who gets to keep the egg. In said tournament, Meowth beats Onix, Bulbasaur beats Psyduck, and Pikachu beats Meowth. In episode 51, Bulbasaur's Mysterious Garden, Ash's Bulbasaur wins against a hiker's Rhyhorn. Now I think we have the most battles in a single episode with this one so far. Episode 52, Princess vs. Princess. I'm pretty sure this was a banned episode too. During this beach tournament, Misty borrows Brock and Ash's Pokemon because she doesn't believe in her own apparently. So, Misty using Bulbasaur wins against Kingler, Pinsir, Cubone, Raticate, and Graveler. Other battles that take place during this are Primeape vs. Meowth, Arbok vs. Primeape, Pikachu vs. Fearow, Vulpix vs. Tangela, Arbok vs. Machoke, Weezing winning against Parasect, Pikachu wins against Arbok, Pikachu beats Weezing, and Pikachu beats Meowth. Jesse's Lickitung beats Pikachu, Bulbasaur, Vulpix, and then Misty Psyduck is victorious against Lickitung, winning the tournament. This battle here is technically a blast-off, but it's an official battle in a tournament, so I'm gonna count it here. In episode 56, The Ultimate Test, Graveler wins against Pikachu, Weezing wins against Flareon, Jolteon wins against Arbok, and Vaporeon wins against Meowth. Episode 58, Riddle Me This, Blaine's Ninetales wins against Ash's Squirtle, and Ash's Pikachu wins against Blaine's Rhydon. Episode 59, Volcanic Panic, Blaine's Magmar takes down Pikachu, and Ash's Charizard is able to take down Blaine's Magmar, earning him that gym badge. This was one of the first real badass Charizard moments, honestly. In episode 63, The Battle of the Badge, Gary Oak's Nidoking wins against Golem, and Gary's Arcanine wins against Kingler. But then Giovanni decides to flex on him and brings out Armored Mewtwo, who wins against Nidoking and Kingler at the same time. Later in the episode, Jesse and James take over the gym leader spot and beat Ash's Squirtle with a Machamp. They use a Kingler to take down Bulbasaur, but then in the end, Pikachu takes down Rhydon, Arbok, and Weezing. Again, the only reason I'm counting this group battle is because it's an official gym battle. In the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, Giovanni uses his Mewtwo to take down Onix, Alakazam, and Magneton. And during the opening credits, we see Ash beat Donphan with his Bulbasaur and use his Squirtle to take down a Machamp. And further into the movie, Mewtwo cosplays as a trainer and uses his clone Venusaur to defeat a Venusaur, clone Blastoise to defeat Blastoise, and clone Charizard to defeat, guess who? Charizard. In episode 73, Bad to the Bone, Otoshi's Marowak beats Bulbasaur, and Pikachu beats Marowak. And in episode 75, Ash finally made it to the Pokemon League in Round 1, Begin. A preliminary trainer uses a Sea King to take down a Tentacruel. And then Ash's Krabby takes down Executor. It then evolves into a Kingler, which takes down Seadra and Golbat. In episode 76, Fire and Ice, Ash uses his Squirtle to take down Nidorino, Kingler to take down Cloyster. His opponent Pete Pebbleman uses Arcanine to take down his Kingler, but Ash sends in Pikachu to take down the Arcanine, winning himself that battle. In episode 77, Melissa's Golem takes down Gary's Nidoking. Later on, Ash is versing Jeanette, and his Bulbasaur takes down Beedrill, his Bulbasaur takes down Scyther, and then Jeanette sends out Bellsprout, which takes down Bulbasaur and Pikachu. But then Ash's Muck takes down the Bellsprout, winning him the battle. In episode 79, Friend and Foe Alike, Ash is pinned up against his buddy Richie with a team of exhausted Pokemon giving him the slight disadvantage. Richie's Butterfree takes down Squirtle, Ash's Pikachu takes down Butterfree, Richie's Charmander takes down Pikachu, Ash's Charizard takes down that Charmander, and because of Charizard's great pride, he didn't even want to fight the Pikachu, meaning that Pikachu technically has the win here, even though it didn't fight at all. In episode 80, Friends to the End, we see Ivysaur taking down Richie's Pikachu, meaning that Richie didn't take the championship either. Now that we got through the Indigo League, let's hop right into the Orange Islands. In episode 87, the Crystal Onyx, the titular Crystal Onyx beats Cloyster, and then Charmeleon takes down the Crystal Onyx. In episode 91, Bye Bye Psyduck, Marina's Tentacruel takes down Misty's Goldeen, Marina Psyduck takes down Misty's Staryu, and then Misty, training a Golduck that is not her own, takes down the Starmie. In episode 94, Snack Attack, we see Snorlax being an absolute menace, taking down Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Staryu, Arbok, Lickitung, and Victory Bell, all while it was eating. In episode 95, A Ship Full of Shivers, the ship captain's Ghastly takes down a tournament trainer's Beedrill. Episode 96, Meowth Rules, a wild Nidoking takes down Meowth, and a wild Onix also takes down Meowth. I guess Meowth forgot about how he took down Brock's Onix earlier in the show, but whatever. In episode 99, the Mandarin Island Mismatch, Bulbasaur takes down Butterfree, Squirtle takes down Persian, Tauros takes down Squirtle, Charizard takes down Tauros, and then Prima shows up on the scene. Her Slowbro taking down Machamp, her Dugong taking down Marowak, Cloyster taking down Kadabra and Pikachu. Episode 103, Misty meets her match, Rudy's Electabuzz takes down Pikachu, Ash's Bulbasaur takes down Executor, and Ash's Squirtle takes down Starmie. In episode 105, Charizard chills. Tad's Poliwrath takes down Pikachu and Charizard, humbling them both. But then later in the episode, Charizard is able to make a comeback and beat Poliwrath. In episode 108, Pokemon Double Trouble, Ash defeats Luana in a double battle, using his Charizard and Pikachu to take down Alakazam and Marowak. Episode 111, Hello Pumelo, Ash's Pikachu takes down Drake's Ditto, and Ash's Squirtle takes down Drake's Onix. Continuing this same battle in episode 112, Enter the Dragonite, Ash's Lapras fights Drake's Gengar to a draw. Ash's Tauros beats Venusaur, Drake's Electabuzz beats Bulbasaur, Ash's Charizard beats Electabuzz, and Drake's Dragonite takes down Charizard, Squirtle, and Tauros. But in the end, Ash's Pikachu took down Dragonite, winning him the Orange Island Conference. And finally, the last episode of this little season, 116, The Rivalry Revival. Gary Oak's Eevee beats Ash's Pikachu. I'm also going to go over the Johto fights during this part 1 video, because Kanto and Johto go hand in hand, especially in the anime. So strap in, we have more battles to report on. In episode 118, the Double Trouble Header, Casey's Chikorita beats a wild Rattata, Ash's Charizard beats Casey's Pidgey, Rattata, and Chikorita. Episode 120, Roll-On Pokemon, Rochelle's Donphan beats Onix and Heracross. Episode 126, the Chikorita Rescue, a wild Chikorita beats Bulbasaur, and the Chikorita fights Ash's Charizard to a draw. Episode 131, Fighting Flyer with Fire, Faulkner's Hoot Hoot beats Chikorita, Ash's Pikachu takes down Hoot Hoot and Dodrio, Faulkner's Pidgeot defeats Pikachu, and Ash's Charizard defeats Pidgeot. In episode 134, Charizard's Burning Ambitions, a Charizard from Charcific Valley takes down Ash's Charizard, humbling him so mightily. In episode 139, Mild and Woolly, Ash's Pikachu takes down a Mareep. Episode 140, Wired for Battle, Ash's Heracross takes down Shingo's Scizor. In episode 141, Good Quill Hunting, Ash's Cyndaquil takes down Koji's Sandslash. In episode 144, Getting the Bugs Out, Ash's Chikorita beats Bugsy's Spinarak, Bugsy's Metapod beats Chikorita, Ash's Pikachu beats Metapod, Bugsy's Scyther beats Pikachu, and Ash's Cyndaquil beats Scyther. In episode 151, the Totodile Duel, Misty's Togepi beats Pikachu, technically because Pikachu didn't feel like fighting, I guess we'll count it. Ash's Chikorita beats Staryu, and Ash's Bulbasaur beats Poliwhirl. Episode 152, Hot Matches, Skarmory beats Vulpix, and Cyndaquil beats Skarmory. Episode 154, Foul Play, Ash's Pikachu takes down a wild Noctowl. In Movie 3, Spell of the Unknown, Ash's Totodile takes down Granbull, Lisa's Girafarig takes down Chikorita, Ash's Noctowl takes down Aipom, Lisa's Butterfree takes down Bulbasaur, Ash's Cyndaquil takes down Mankey, and Ash's Pikachu takes down Quagsire. Later on in the same movie, Molly's Flaffy takes down Zubat, Molly's Teddiursa takes down Vulpix, Molly's Vampy takes down Onix, and Molly's Kingdra takes down Goldeen. In episode 156, The Psychic Sidekicks, Ash's Pikachu takes down Girafarig. In episode 158, A Goldenrod Opportunity, Ash's Cyndaquil takes down Nidorina, and Whitney's Miltank takes down Cyndaquil, Totodile, and Pikachu. In episode 159, A Dairy Tale Ending, Whitney's Miltank takes down Cyndaquil and Totodile, but in the end, Ash's Pikachu took down Miltank. In episode 166, Two Hits and a Miss, Ash's Bulbasaur takes down Tauros, Bulbasaur takes down Hitmontop, and Hitmontop takes down Hitmonlee. In episode 168, Hook, Line, and Stinker, Misty's Poliwhirl takes down Andreas's Poliwrath. Episode 171, Power Play, Gary Oak's Umbreon takes down an Alakazam. Episode 174, The Imitation Showdown, Duplica's Ditto takes down Ash's Totodile. Episode 176, Ariados Amigos, Houndour takes down Hypno, Bulbasaur takes down Venonat. In episode 178, The Grass Route, Chikorita takes down Skiploom, Bulbasaur takes down Gloom, Skiploom takes down Victory Bell, Bulbasaur takes down Vileplume, Bulbasaur takes down Executor, Skiploom takes down Tangela, and Skiploom defeats Bulbasaur. In episode 182, From Ghost to Ghost, Morty's Ghastly defeats Ash's Pikachu, Ash's Cyndaquil takes down Ghastly, Haunter takes down Cyndaquil, Noctowl takes down Haunter, and Noctowl takes down Gengar. In episode 183, Trouble's Brewin', Vaporeon takes down Poliwhirl, and Pikachu takes down Jolteon. In episode 204, Rhydon, Meryl takes down Rhydon. In the fourth movie, Celebi in the Voice of the Forest, Ash's Pikachu takes down a Croconaw, and Ash and Sam Oakes, Charmeleon and Bayleaf take down Sneasel and Scizor. In episode 208, Fight for the Light, Onix takes down Totodile. In episode 209, Poliwrath takes down Pikachu, Bayleaf takes down Poliwrath, and Bayleaf takes down Machoke. In episode 213, Poliwhirl takes down Corsola. In episode 215, Octillery the Outcast, Remoraid takes down Corsola, Totodile takes down Seal, Poliwhirl takes down Magikarp, Totodile takes down Shelder, and Corsola takes down Z-King. In episode 216, Dueling Heroes, Totodile takes down Kingdra, and Corsola wins against Quillfish. In episode 217, The Perfect Match, Poliwhirl wins against Totodile, Kingler wins against Poliwhirl, Psyduck wins against Kingler, Gyarados wins against Poliwhirl, Corsola wins against Gyarados, and Chinchou wins against Corsola. Episode 224, Nerves of Steelix, Ash's Pikachu takes down a Magnemite, and Jasmine's Steelix takes down Pikachu, but Ash turns right around with his Cyndaquil, taking down that Steelix. And in episode 226, Espeon Not Included, Misty's Corsola takes down Espeon. In the Pokemon Chronicles, The Legend of Thunder, Jimmy's Typhlosion wins against Hitmonlee, and Jimmy's Beedrill wins against Jigglypuff. Episode 233, A Tyrogue Full of Trouble, a wild Tyrogue wins against Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee. In episode 236, A Rage of Innocence, Lance's Dragonite wins against Fearow and Gyarados. Episode 237, As Cold as Price, Price's Dugong wins against Phanpy. In episode 238, Nice Price Baby, Cyndaquil wins against Dugong, Piloswine wins against Cyndaquil, and Pikachu wins against Piloswine. In episode 240, Some Like It Hot, a wild Magcargo wins against Poliwhirl, Flareon, and then Flareon is able to win against Magcargo in the end. Episode 247, Outrageous Fortunes, Poliwrath wins against Hitmontop, and Poliwrath wins against Poliwhirl. Episode 248, One Trick Phony, Venusaur wins against Cyndaquil, Totodile wins against Charizard, and Pikachu wins against Blastoise. In episode 254, Better 8 Than Never, Ash's Snorlax wins against Claire's Kingdra, Gyarados wins against Snorlax, Pikachu wins against Gyarados, Dragonair wins against Pikachu, and Charizard wins against Dragonair. Episode 256, Just Add Water, Quillfish wins against Goldeen, and Corsola wins against Mantine. Episode 261, Here's Looking at You, Elekid, Meganium wins against Elekid. Episode 262, You're a Star, Larvitar, Magby wins against Cyndaquil. Episode 265, Pop Goes the Sneasel, Corsola wins against Machoke, Houndoom wins against Machop, Sneasel wins against Totodile, and Blaziken wins against Sneasel. Episode 266, Acclaim to Flame, Donphan wins against Ursaring, Pikachu wins against Furret, Phanpy wins against Machoke, and Cyndaquil wins against Executor. In episode 267, Love, Pokemon Style, Phanpy wins against Slugma, Quilava wins against Phanpy, Electabuzz wins against Totodile, Squirtle wins against Electabuzz, and Squirtle wins against Quilava. In episode 268, Tie One On, Quilava wins against Poliwhirl, Pikachu wins against Azumarill, Magneton wins against Pikachu, Magneton wins against Cyndaquil, Bulbasaur beats Magneton, and Meganium and Bulbasaur fight to a draw. Episode 269, The Ties That Bind, Sneasel wins against Machamp, Nidoqueen wins against Tauros, and Heracross wins against Magmar. Continuing Ash vs. Gary in 270, Can't Beat the Heat, Blastoise wins against Heracross, Blastoise beats Bayleaf, Snorlax wins against Arcanine, Snorlax wins against Nidoqueen, Scizor beats Snorlax, Scizor beats Muck, Charizard beats Scizor, Charizard beats Golem, and in the end, Charizard beats Blastoise, earning him his victory against Gary Oak. In episode 271, Playing with Fire, Pikachu wins against Kecleon, Sneasel wins against Pikachu, Totodile wins against Sneasel, Hypno beats Totodile, Snorlax beats Hypno, Steelix beats Noctowl, Snorlax beats Steelix, Houndoom beats Snorlax, Bayleaf beats Houndoom, and Blaziken wins against Bayleaf. And then in episode 272, Johto Photo Finish, Blaziken wins against Charizard, Rhyhorn wins against Houndoom, and Rapidash wins against Rhydon. And the last episode of the Johto season, Gotta Catch You Later, Misty's Politoed wins against Hitmonchan. Oh my goodness, that was a lot of stats to get through, but we finally made it through this first part. And now that we've gone through all those battles, we can see which Pokemon has the most individual wins. Of course, we all expected Pikachu to be up there with 37, but Bulbasaur not too far behind with his 23. Charizard has his 16, and Snorlax with the 11. And of course, we can't forget our only Johto representative up in the top 5 with Cyndaquil with 9 wins. Props to Snorlax, by the way, for being 4th place and not being a starter Pokemon. This top 10 is littered with them. Shifting into individual Pokemon win rates, you can see a lot of Pokemon ended up with the same percentages, so we're going by categories. And to be fair, a lot of these 100% have only had 1 or 2 battles, so that is sure to go down as this video series goes along. Throughout these videos, I'm also going to give the stats for the Evolution family. So shocking no one, the Pichu through Raichu line is still with the most wins with 38. Bulbasaur still number 2, but Charmander hopped ahead a little bit. Cyndaquil still up there. Squirtle and Snorlax kind of evening out that top 5. And again with the percentages, this time for the whole Evolution family. A lot less 100%ers here, so I guess I'll name them out. The Ponyta family, the Slowpoke family, Mewtwo, the Chinchou family, the Togepi line, the Snubbull family, and the Torchic family. All have 100% in these first 2 regions. Whew, and now here we are at the end of the video. Feel free to go back a couple seconds, pause, and look for your favorite Pokemon. And if your favorite from the first 2 gens isn't there, then sorry, they're just not a fighter in the anime, I guess. Hell, even if they are on that list, they might not be a fighter. There were a lot of 0%. That being said, I am excited to start my Hoenn research for the next video. My personal favorite Pokemon is Sableye, so I'm excited to see if he even battles at all in that series. But hey, I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please subscribe because there will be more coming. So have a good one. See ya.